Welcome to Hardcover Feedback. I'm Brandy Smits.
And I'm Tracy Hill.
And today we have 3 books to share with you. The first one is kind of a comedic, chaotic story all wound up in a neat little box. The second is a chick lit romantic comedy with a side of suspense. And thirdly, we have a zombie apocalypse book. So first off, we have Lux the Poet by Martin Millar. There is something about Lux. He's a thief and a liar. He is selfish and self-absorbed and hopelessly vain. Amid shouting mobs, police shields, and hurled bricks of the 1980s Brixton riots, Lux is searching for Pearl, the love of his life, whose home has been burned by a stray petrol bomb. Along the way, there's a thrash metal band, lots and lots of poems, a riot party, past lives, computer police, and one poetry-loving squirrel.
At 17, Lux the Poet is a natural optimist, undeterred by life's misfortunes. Being hopelessly in love with a girl called Pearl who doesn't care for him all that much could count as a misfortune, but Lux always imagines that people he likes enough are bound to like him back sooner or later, and in view of the wonderful new poem he has written for her, it will probably be sooner. He thinks about her all the time and supposes that she thinks of him. Pearl is, at this moment, trying to shepherd her friend Nikki through a riot. Nikki is practically comatose with worry. The shops in the main street of Brixton are starting to burn. It is becoming hard to hear over the sound of shouts and sirens and breaking glass, hard to move in the crowds that are alternately advancing in triumph or retreating in disarray, and generally no fun at all for someone intent only on finding some safety. So right now, Pearl is not spending much time thinking about Lux. I killed my computer. Don't let them artificially inseminate me, moans Nikki obscurely, and Pearl drags her on.
This book is ridiculous.
Bizarre.
But I kind of like it, even though it has no sense of anything. And Lux, as a person, I don't know if I met Lux, if I would love him and want him to hang out with me on a daily basis, or if he would say 3 words to me and I punch him in the face. I'm kind of torn. But he's awesome. I don't know. I like him. I know you don't like this, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm not as conflicted. I'm not a fan of Lux in particular, because being 17 for him has nothing to do with it. It's that he's vain, he's oblivious, he's not that bright. We don't really get to see what kind of a poet he is. And really, he just kind of seems like a player in some larger overarching scheme, and not really an agent in what's going on. He had nothing to do with the riot, which was an historical event, and he has precious little to do with what other action happens in the book. He's going around searching for Pearl, and for him, that's it. That's all that's really going on.
That's his story. This is kind of, I guess, the best way to describe a story like this is it's kind of like the movie Magnolia or the movie Crash, where you have a bunch of characters that have their own things going on, but throughout the story, they're connected. So it's similar like that. It's like random chaos. Everyone's doing their own thing, but there's still some kind of connection.
Yeah.
And they're interesting little stories. It's almost like, it's like a book of short stories, but they interrupt each other.
But they're all intercut with each other, and the characters do interact, and they drift away from each other, and they come back, and Lux is there through it all, and he contacts everybody that we see. My issue, one of my numerous issues with this book, was that, not that there were so many different things going on, but that it was so spotty. Like, some of the things I really, really liked. For for lack of a better word, subplot of the woman who kept trying to get back into heaven after she'd been kicked out through no fault of her own by doing good deeds. You know, that was terrific. That was my favorite thing.
I think that was probably one of my favorite storylines throughout the book, too.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we
And-
agree on something.
Yes, we do agree on a few things. And Pearl was great.
I like Pearl.
Well, she's better than Nikki.
That's true. That's true. If there's any character in this book that did not need to be there, it would have been Pearl or Nikki. Nikki is
Yes.
just whiny and annoying and uncovered some crazy plot at her work about
Yeah.
genetically engineering smart babies.
Yeah.
And then she gets mad and destroys her computer and everything on it, and now is running away from the company and the
Yeah.
computer police. And you're just like, what are you talking about? I don't know.
Yes, she could. You know what? I hate admitting this, but I think I actually, if I had to choose between getting rid of Nikki and getting rid of Lux and like titling the book something else, I would have gotten rid of Nikki, truly. And there was so much you by describing that bizarre little plot or subplot or whatever the heck it is, it points up to another problem where all these elements and situations, some dire, some ridiculous, some were real, and some are completely fantasy, thrown together, stirred up, to what effect? I don't know. The only thing that I did like was how they were ordered, and there was some order to this book. There was some structure going on. The way the things are intercut, it got to a point where I could almost predict which of these mini stories was going to resurface in the next section. But aside from that, I was annoyed.
And I don't, this is like hard. I don't know. I don't know what I think about this book.
know.
And that is why, you know, bottom line, I have to give this book 2 stars, and that's only for a few reasons. One, I was genuinely entertained. For the most part.
Okay.
2,
That's important.
I would like someone else to read this book because I think that this is one of those books where you have to read it to have an opinion about it. This is not one of those books where everyone's like, oh, it's the greatest book ever, even though I never read it, but I've heard so many things, so it must be the greatest book ever because that's what everyone else says.
Yeah.
I really think that I want to encourage people to read it, and it is an adult book. I mean, the main character is 17,
Yeah.
but it's not a kid's, it's
No.
not a teen book. It's an adult book. It's got some things in it that we'll
Mature themes.
We'll just say that.
Completely mature themes.
But I think that I do want people to read it, and I feel as if I give it a horrible rating and you give it a horrible rating, then no one will want to read it. But I want someone to, because I want someone to experience it. I don't know. Maybe explain it to me. I don't know. Maybe that's it. I need someone to explain it
Yeah,
to me.
okay. If you want someone to explain it to you, I can understand that. Okay.
don't know.
Myself, I would not recommend this to anyone that I really cared about. So I would give it 1 star on the strength of the structure, on the strength of the feeling and the sense that the author knows what he's doing. He obviously knows
it's
how to
well
put
written.
together a book. It's not his first book. So there's something there, but it's totally, it went over my head. I completely missed it. If there was some trick to understanding it or something, it was just lost on me. So
All right. So I give it 2.
I give
you
it
give it
1.
1. And
Yeah.
we will be right back. Welcome back. The next book we are reading today is called Welcome to Temptation by Jennifer Crusie.
All Sophie Dempsey wants is to live a quiet life taping weddings for her video company. But when a video assignment brings them to Temptation, Ohio, Sophie gets a bad feeling as soon as she enters the small town. A feeling immediately followed by a car wreck, which leads to a confrontation with young Mayor Phineas Tucker. When Sophie's video is changed into an erotic video against her wishes, the town turns to Finn to put a stop to it. As the craziness continues in temptation, Finn and Sophie fall deeper and deeper in trouble and in love.
He had broad shoulders, mirrored sunglasses, and no smile, and Sophie could hear ominous music on the soundtrack in her head as her heart started to pound. His fair hair shone in the late afternoon sun. His profile was classic and beautiful. The sleeves of his tailored shirt were rolled precisely to his elbows, and his khaki slacks were immaculate and pressed. He looked like every glossy frat boy in every nerd movie ever made, like every popular town boy who'd ever looked right through her in high school, like every rotten rich kid who'd ever belonged where she hadn't. My mama warned me about guys like you. He turned to her as if he'd heard her and took off his sunglasses, and she went down the steps to meet him, wiping her sweaty palms on her dust-smeared khaki shorts. "Hi, I'm Sophie Dempsey," she said, flashing the Dempsey gotta-love-me grin as she held out her hot, grimy hand, and after a moment, he took it. His hand was clean and cool and dry, and her heart pounded harder as he looked into his remote gray eyes. "Hello, Sophie Dempsey," her worst nightmare said. "Welcome to temptation."
I like that passage.
Yeah.
I think it works.
I don't usually like books that are coined chick lit or romantic comedies, and this one kind of fit into the stereotype that is, preceding it. It is very soap opera-esque. And
think?
I do think it's just a very, oh no, whatever shall we do? It's this guy
Oh.
and this guy, and oh, this guy from my past has returned and he is trying.
Fair. Not fair.
I don't know.
Okay, for the record, I don't like chick lit either, and I have read precious little of it, and I don't typically enjoy it. This is not something, based on the description, I would have chosen for myself, and I thoroughly expected to not enjoy this story of two sisters rolling into town and getting into a little fender bender with a really irate, upstanding citizen there. As it proceeds, the characters actually got some development to them. I think they were consistent with each other. Yes, there was a lot going on because it does go beyond just the filming of a particular video, and then the video is turned into something much more adult, and that makes a lot of people unhappy about it. So yes, the plot does get really entangled after a point.
And there's so many characters. Like, that was one of my biggest complaints while I was reading this, is I could not keep every character straight. There's how many people on the city council, and then how many, this guy's mom and that guy's mom, and
But it was a finite number, and
I
and you
know.
got to see them all enough
That's
to
true.
where, okay, I remember this guy, I remember whose mom is whose, and all this, and
was
and they
family
were
reunion.
distinctive. It was just a matter of getting used to how many people there were, and that was a little lumpy, but then it did balance out, and after a while it got easier to keep track, and again, the characters were internally consistent.
that's true.
It's not like there was any major transformation going on with anyone either, really. It was more like if a character did seem to do something out of character, it was something that they had longed for anyway.
Right.
That-
It wasn't a surprise.
Yeah,
Like, it wasn't
yes,
unexpected or
right.
unnecessary.
Yeah, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was organic that way.
And I will say there is something that I liked about it. I mean, it's not like I
Yay.
despise this book to, like, an unknown end. I really did like the way that she changed a book that, by summary that you would read about or reviews that you would read, you think is just some little chick-lit book, whatever, just this little romantic comedy of lacking substance and plot and whatever. Because that's what I thought when I first read what this was about.
same
Like, I
here,
really
yeah.
didn't expect a whole lot out of this.
Yeah, me
I did
either.
get more than I expected. There is a very interesting combination of a romantic comedy and a suspenseful mystery aspect that I was not expecting.
Me either.
It did keep me engrossed a little bit longer than it might have. I did also thoroughly enjoy the character of Dilly, and I
was great,
would love
yeah.
to read more just about Dilly.
Yeah.
Dilly being Finn's daughter, so the Finn and Sophie relationship involving, and then there's suddenly this little girl who
This too smart little
speaks
girl.
like, she speaks, more adult than the other people who are adults and acts more mature than, way more mature, I should say, than the actual adults in the storyline who are fighting over streetlights and then the
water tower.
constantly color-changing water tower that keeps looking a little risque and just paint the stupid thing white and get it over
There you
with
go.
type thing.
Yeah. And
But, all in all, I didn't hate it.
okay.
I will say that I, wasn't my favorite. I'm going to give it 2 stars because I did like some of the things that she did in the story that kept me interested. It wasn't like I had to throw it against the wall a couple times before I finished it. So
Well, that's a plus.
I know, and
I didn't expect to like it at all either, and I'm pleasantly surprised I liked it as much as I did, so I will give it 3 stars. And that's a very solid, healthy 3 because it did combine genres pretty well. The suspense part that comes later is germane to the story, and I think the resolutions were satisfying and maybe not realistic, given that it's a little far-fetched anyway, but they were reasonable.
yeah.
So.
Point A got to point B. It was a little crazy on the way, but it wasn't like they took a detour, through
Yeah.
Antarctica to get there or
And-
something like that.
And I enjoyed the ride, so.
Okay, so I give it 2, and Tracy gives it 3, and we will be right back. Welcome back, and our final book of the show today is called World War Z by Max Brooks. The zombie war came unthinkably close to eradicating humanity. Max Brooks, driven by the urgency of preserving the acid-etched first-hand experiences of the survivors from those apocalyptic years, traveled across the United States and throughout the world from decimated cities that once teemed with upwards of 30 million souls to the most remote and inhospitable areas of the planet. The recorded testimony of men, women, and children were contained within this invaluable chronicle reflecting the full scope and duration of the zombie war.
I know professional historians like to talk about how Yonkers represented a, quote, catastrophic failure of the modern military apparatus, unquote, how it proved the old adage that armies perfect the art of fighting the last war just in time for the next one. Personally, I think that's a big old sack of it. Sure, we were unprepared, our tools, our training, everything I just talked about. But the weapon that really failed wasn't something that rolled off an assembly line. It's as old as, I don't know, I guess as old as war. It's fear, dude. Just fear, and you don't have to be Sun freaking Tzu to know that real fighting isn't about killing or even hurting the other guy. It's about scaring him enough to call it a day. Break their spirit. That's what every successful army goes for, from tribal face paint to the blitzkrieg to, what do we call the first round of Gulf War II? Shock and awe? Perfect name, shock and awe. But what if the enemy can't be shocked and awed? Not just won't, but biologically can't. That's what happened that day outside New York City. That's the failure that almost lost us the whole damn war. The fact that we couldn't shock and awe Zach boomeranged right back in our faces and actually allowed Zach to shock and awe us. They're not afraid. No matter what we do, no matter how many we kill, they will never, ever be afraid.
This is not your typical zombie book.
Oh no.
No, this is this is not a, this is never going to happen zombie apocalypse type thing. This is if the zombies were real, and if the zombies attacked tomorrow, what would happen?
Yeah, it's pure aftermath.
It is. That's the whole story is basically a recollection of experiences that happened during, before, and after the zombie war. It's political, it's military, it's personal, I would definitely say mature. This is not a kid's this is not a kid's zombie book. This is adult.
Absolutely.
You know,
Adults only.
it is terrifying to think that if zombies were real, which as far as I know right now, zombies are not real. So if they were real, I'd be very scared because this, like that passage you read, nails it.
Yeah.
That's it. What would we do?
What would we do? You can't do anything to them except blow their heads off or make them disintegrate somehow, and that's the only way to stop them. And the most frightening thing about this book is that this is probably the way it would go. The events that are described, the Rediker plan that's outlined, the strategy for keeping as much of humanity alive as possible, the way the military reacts in different countries, all around the world, the way people react, this is probably how it would go.
My favorite thing out of everything this is how it really would happen.
Yeah.
Was the recollection of a celebrity bodyguard.
Oh,
because all the celebrities house themselves in this big safe house and videotape themselves. So it's reality TV during the zombie apocalypse. It was just like, really? That's where you want to be?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the kind of stupidity that gets people killed, in the real world against, you don't expose yourself like that, but it just goes to show that's a fantastic example of how people did not know what they were dealing with, didn't know what to do. There was nothing in place to prevent this, and yet we see throughout these narratives what steps are taken to, just in case.
Yeah, to fix
if they come up again, because they might be buried underground, they might be underwater, they could be hiding anywhere. So now what kind of world is it? And we see these people talking in retrospect what kind of world it was at the time, which is horrifying.
Yeah.
And then we also learn from them what the world is like at the time of them speaking. And it's still kind of horrifying.
Yeah. There's a lot that we can talk about this, and we could probably have an entire show just talking about this book.
It's true. Yeah.
So, well, let's just wrap this one up and do what we're going to do here, because there's so much we can say about it, but you have to read it. We can't tell you.
For mature readers, it is a must read. Yeah.
We can't tell you what it's like. You have to experience it. The voices are so clear. All of this adds up to the 4 stars that I give it. It comes alive. Everyone here you feel like this really happened, even though obviously it didn't, but you feel like it did. And that is, it's like a historical book for something that hasn't happened but could have happened. It's crazy.
Yes, it's a parallel history kind of thing. And because it feels so real, too real sometimes, but yet we survived. I give it 4 stars because I'm glad we survived. And I don't like zombie stuff that much to read anyway, to overactive imagination, but I'm so glad I read this book, and to any reader mature enough to handle this, I would heartily recommend it.
All right, well, let's do our recap here for the day. The first book was Lux the Poet by Martin Millar. I gave it 2 stars, and Tracy gave it 1 star.
Yeah.
The second book today was Welcome to Temptation by Jennifer Crusie. I gave it 2 stars, and Tracy gave it 3 stars. And finally, World War Z by Max Brooks. All around 4 stars.
4 big
Give it a
ones.
shot, see what you think. Let us know what you think. I don't know, it's something you have to experience. So that's it for us today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.